welcome to the Positive Psychology Coaching and Diversity Institute, aka PPCaDI's live for this month. I'm super excited to be with you all. I am Dr. Kiki Ramsey, and I am joined by none other than
Dr. Kathleen Costello.
I'm so excited to have you here. Me and Dr. Kathleen, we have a beautiful topic this month. We're talking all about the courage to step into belonging. Oh my God, that word again. There's the B word. I'm calling you a B, right? There's that B word again that we're talking about, but it's not a derogatory term. It's a term that is inclusive of everyone. And so I'm actually really excited to get into this conversation because, Dr. Kathleen, you know that this word right now and has always, I think, been thrown around, just used. And I think people think it's such a buzzword, but it really does mean something that's, super important. And so I wanted to kind of jump in and kind of share my definition of belonging, and then you can share your definition, and we can just begin to have a conversation about really how do organizations really have this courage to step into what we're calling belonging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great.
So belonging is really your sense of, being in a space where you feel comfortable, that you fit in, that they are making you comfortable. You feel like, okay, wow, I should be here. And the people around me are also making me feel like I should be here in this space at this time, right? Belonging is not only synonymous to the workplace, right? Belonging is you can have belonging when we're talking about family, friends, and it's that sense of like I should be here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that to me is what everybody needs. And to be honest with you, if we go back to Psychology 101, which we all have pretty much taken, and we look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, belonging is a actual need. Like it's not something that you wake up one day and say, oh, I would like to be a part of something. I would like to feel like I am a part of this larger thing. It's not that. It's something we need. This is why we say we are relational creatures. We have to be a part of each other's lives, a part of an organization in order for us to be completely whole. So that's kind of like the definition that I operate under as belonging. And I know here at PPCaDI, we kind of take that same stance, but do you have like a different take on it or anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think that was a pretty all-inclusive definition. I guess I like what you were saying about kind of like, I should be here, like that feeling. I think it's also a feeling that you're really accepted as you are. And I think that's a deep need and desire, is that we can actually show up and feel like we're going to be fully accepted for who we are, which then really creates that authentic feeling of belonging, because we don't have to put on any kind of airs or be somebody that we're not. And I love what you brought up about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because I was just writing about belonging, and I was reviewing the hierarchy, and you're absolutely right. Like it's a part of being human. It's not just a nice to have. It's actually part of what's going to make us thrive.
Yes, absolutely. I love the word thrive. It's like these days, thriving is one of my favorite words, because I'm like, the way most people want to be in organizations or even in their life, they don't want to just survive. Why can't we thrive? Right? Like, why can't we, show up and be ourselves? And I love that you mentioned that, because that is really all about psychological safety. Right? Psychological safety is your ability to be able to show up in your space being completely who you are, and not, putting on a front or putting on a mask or having a code switch or whatever whatever you think. Like, it's literally being able to show up and say, I'm Dr. Kathleen, I'm Dr. Kiki, here I am, this is me. And and be okay with that. Right? Be okay with your diversity, and be okay with who you are. And I think that when it comes to organizations, and especially people in leadership, we have to be courageous enough to be able to do that. And organizations have to be courageous enough to let people be able to do that. Even though when you think about it, it's what it should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
It's what it should be, but it's not.
Well, I think that's where a lot of the DEI initiatives are coming from. I mean, much bigger than this only, but I mean, that's kind of at the root or the foundation of all of those things is supporting a sense of belonging where everybody who's present in an organization feels like they belong there, feels like they should be there, that they have a right to be there.
Yes. So why do you think it really matters at work? Though, right? I mean, I know this might be one of those questions like, well, no, like seriously, why does having belonging and creating a space of belonging and psychological safety matter at work?
I mean, to me, so from a young age, I think I was very aware that we spend a lot of our life at our work. Whatever we do professionally, I would say about a third of our life is spent in that work. And that's a huge portion of our life. And so if we're showing up to something or to some place and we don't feel a sense of belonging, I think about the impact that has psychologically, emotionally on the rest of our lives, on the rest of how we show up. And so I think it's really important because though I think, yes, work is a professional setting and we need to honor that, it also is a place that we should be able to show up and be our authentic selves and feel that sense that we're part of something bigger. And that it's not just that we belong, but we also foster an environment that supports belonging for other people too, and recognize that everybody has that need.
Yes. I love that, you talk about like it literally fosters it for everybody. I honestly think that we spend so much time at work. I mean, I could count the hours. Even I'm at work right now. You're at work right now, right? Like we're working, right? So this is a part of work. And now with the way we have transitioned to working from home a lot, it's like we're at work even more than what we used to be. There used to be like very clear boundaries. We could get off of work because we used to go to work. We could get off of work, we could come home, and we could turn it off. Long are the days that I wish, that I could get off of work and turn it off. So the fact that if I don't feel like I belong and I am at work probably 80% of the time, or that's tragic, right?
Yeah.
I also think that people in organizations, mainly leaders, think that when you give people quote unquote permission to come to work as they are, I think people take that out of context. You act like I'm about to come to work, I'm about to be cussing, I'm about to be, just a wild person, right? I think that people are just gonna go crazy if you say bring yourself to work. No, that's not at all what we mean. I may want to come to work and feel like, okay, I am comfortable enough to have my locks and it's fine. Nobody gonna say nothing about my hair, even though the Crown Act is still out there where people can still discriminate against you based on your hair texture and your hair type, right? All our LGBTQ friends and colleagues, right? Maybe they want to feel comfortable coming to work in their own skin, right? Like that's what we mean by, fostering a sense of belonging, being able to be who you are, not that you're going to come to work being crazy. Like, do you get the sense that people feel that way?
Well, that's kind of what I was meaning by kind of this idea of professionalism, right? I mean, I would hope at this day and age that people know that, when you're showing up to a professional workplace, there's certain expectations of kind of what's acceptable behavior, right? But that doesn't mean that we all have to fit into a box. Like you're saying, I mean, yeah, I'm not going to show up to work with my favorite bottle of wine and have it at my cubicle. And, though who knows, I mean, that could be fun, but no, we know that's
happy hour. hour. We go
but right. We go to happy hour after, but on the flip side, that I can show up and feel like I can still be who I am, or like you were sharing, like I can talk about my partner at home and not feel like I have to hide whoever, whatever or whoever that person is, or that I can show up and my appearance is not questioned, or, I think it's about being able to be who you are within professional limits.
Yes. And so I think that needs to be stated a lot more, because I just don't think that people really understand that. But that's what we mean. Show up as you, but you're still going to maintain professionalism. Right? So what impacts, either positive or negative, are there of having an inclusive culture that prioritizes belonging? What do you think some of the impacts, whether it be negative or positive, for these cultures out here that are seeking to prioritize belonging?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything negative, though I think it can be challenging. I mean, I think it can be challenging for organizations. I think it can be challenging to exactly know how to define and create these kind of inclusive, belonging environments. So, but as far as, I don't think there's really any negative to it, right? Because we're by prioritizing it, we're fostering places that people want to work. And I think that that's where the positives come, is that, by creating inclusive, diverse environments, we're not only getting a much broader group of people, which is great, right? That fosters creativity, innovation, all of these wonderful things. It allows us to learn more about each other, right? Like being exposed to new cultures, new backgrounds, so I would say there's challenges in creating it, but there's so many benefits to prioritizing it that it's absolutely worth it.
Yes, I totally agree. I agree that I don't really see any negatives at all, but you are correct. It is challenging. And I think that is challenging because I just think that some organizations don't know how to create that, how to say, show up as you are, and how to implement that. But I do think it starts with like policies and procedures and the way that you're looking at things, making sure that things are equitable amongst all the people within the organization. So I think those are some really key places to start when you do want to begin implementing belonging. And that can be challenging for some people, but there's help, right? There's help by, people like us here at PPCaDI to help organizations learn how to really include belonging into their culture and how to infuse it into their culture. And I think that that's what I want people to know, is like, if you don't know how to do it, there's help out there in order to do it. But when you do include it, it literally increases happiness amongst your employees. It really does. Because right now, 56% of all Americans are unhappy at work. What?
Significant.
That's significant. It's more than half of y'all out here listening to me and Dr. Kathleen talk. They're, who aren't happy at work. But what if you could create happier employees? Your bottom line would raise. I mean, it's the truth. Your bottom line would go up. That's just, it's just true. And so I think that if you want happier employees, you need to figure out how to create a sense of belonging in your organization. So I think we talked about a little bit of this, but where are some challenges that some of these leaders can encounter when they're trying to build a belonging culture?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I mean, I think one thing that comes to mind is that not everybody embraces diversity, right? So, and I'm even thinking, there's folks that probably would say, no, like leave all that at home. Like when you come to work, you just work.
Yep.
And though, I think there's some, what's the word I'm looking for? there's some truth to, right? Like we go to work, but kind of going
Mhm.
back to what we talked about at the beginning, we also spend so much time at work that
Mhm.
we want to be able to feel like there is that safety in being able to be who we are. And so I think my guess, one of the challenges for leaders is that balance, right? Is
Mhm.
being able to work with employees who may have differing feelings on kind of what is acceptable in the workplace. And I
Mhm.
think that's where there's a lot of education opportunities. And then also going back to psychological safety, where there do need to be safe spaces that people can express
Mhm.
what they're feeling, whether, for example, I'm just going to use this example, but if somebody comes in, let's say with blue hair, this is just an example, right? And
Mhm.
somebody else has an opinion that it shouldn't be okay for whatever reason. That's fine,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Both people can have their experience, but then both people need to be able to have the space to privately talk about that. And then the organization needs to be able to educate on what their policies and procedures are.
Mhm.
And so I think it's about not making anyone wrong, but
Yeah.
really helping support that everybody can say what they need to say in a safe
Mhm.
space, in a respectful space, but then the organization has to have its own policy in order to educate so that people know what the boundaries are and what's
Mhm.
acceptable.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit it, right on the head because I believe that, like I mentioned before, it does start, a lot with when it comes to policies, right? Like because their blue hair and purple hair and pink hair has shown up, right?
Hmm.
It's shown up, and it's shown up. Really, it's shown up against different diversities,
Hmm.
right? And so if you have a policy in place, then you can treat everybody the same, whether it be, okay, well, you know what, that's your expression of yourself. Let's okay, it's fine. Or we prefer you not to have blue hair or whatever, right? But I think that making sure that you have these policies, procedures, and the way that you do things that are equitable and fair across the board, it's
Hmm.
going to cut down a lot of that. And if I know this, then and you tell me it's not right, then I can't say, oh well, wow, you're targeting me or anything like that. But the more I think that organizations are transparent, the
Hmm.
more belonging also that they can have, right? Because
Sure.
I've seen a lot of challenges when it comes to organizations who are not really transparent about what they're doing. And you're right. Some people may not subscribe to this, all of the diversity, equity, and inclusion. There are a lot of companies out there that are just like, come to work and I don't want to deal with this.
Hmm.
But here's the thing, if you take that stance, then you must not want employees.
Hmm.
Because think about it. We bring our whole selves to work, right?
Right.
I can't leave my legs at home and just come to work with my arms. Like, I mean, you see what I'm saying? Like, I have to bring all of me. So all of me is all of me.
Hmm.
It's every bit of me. So you can't expect for me just to come to work, especially when I'm spending more time at the job
Hmm.
and not bring the rest of me, meaning the need and the want to feel like I am supposed to be here
Hmm.
and then I'm wanted.
And I think that goes to, we're kind of talking about some, more exterior things, right? That may, hair color, things like that. But I
Mhm.
think in a deeper level too, it's that feeling that we can have a voice at work, that
Mhm.
who we are and our opinions on things are valid and that they can be
Yes.
heard.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big challenge for a lot of
Mhm.
employees, is feeling there's enough safety that they can be honest about things,
Mhm.
that they can share when they think something is unjust or out of line, or policies or anything, that there's a space that can be expressed, and people don't have to be worried they're going to lose their job, or they're going to,
Yeah.
kind of get like a mark on their record or something. And,
Mhm.
and so I think that's like a deeper level of belonging, that
Mhm.
we can feel like we can really show up at work and be a contributor,
Yeah.
kind of the good, bad, the ugly, right? Like we can bring it all up and that's okay. And I think that goes to a lot of management training, right? I think being a manager is not an easy job. And part of it is being able to have some of these tougher conversations with employees. And so we really want to be able to empower those leaders to feel comfortable to have those conversations, create those safe spaces so that employees can feel that, when they come to work.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Which is the whole reason why we created Positively Diverse Leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because we do understand here at PPCaDI that those conversations are super hard to have sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you don't have the background or the knowledge or, and we're hopefully helping you build the courage, right? To then have these conversations. But Positively Diverse Leadership is basically a person's ability to work from a place of strength, and so that they can build relationships and learn how to communicate around tough issues that concern diversity, equity, and inclusion and leadership. And I think that if we could learn to communicate better and build real authentic relationships within the organization, we're all going to be better for it, right? We're all going to be better for that. And the cultures are going to change and they're going to get better and continue to get better. And that's why I said these organizations with this kind of culture and this kind of transparency, they have amazing employees who love to come to work every single day because they're like, you know what? I know that I'm supposed to be here. I know that I belong. And I know that I can contribute, not just by a number, right? Not by just ticking off a box or just, because I do good work, but that people actually take what I say into consideration, and my thought process and everything that I bring to the table does matter. Because you can't just be a number, or you can just be, just be a worker bee and just get stuff done, but your voice might not matter. So I'm so glad you went even deeper than the service, because that really does matter.
Yeah, and I feel for leaders. In coaching leaders over the last few years, there's definitely some trepidation in having some of those harder conversations, and that's why I'm so glad we have trainings like that can help empower leaders to know, first off, you don't have to have all the answers, right? Yeah. But being able to strongly communicate, being an active listener, knowing how to do some coaching, all of those things are going to help support you when you're having these kind of conversations.
Yeah, it totally is going to be able to support. So I love that. Well, as we are going to be wrapping up here shortly, what are some responsibilities of a leader on this kind of journey of helping to build inclusive environments? So if I was a leader in an organization, which I am, which you are, right? What is our responsibility to this whole journey of belonging?
That's a good question. Well, I think, again, recognizing, kind of like we started with, that it's a basic human need, right? We all have it. And so even as a leader, like recognizing, do we feel that? Do we feel a sense of belonging in our organization? And if we don't, how do we address that?
Ooh, that's good.
And then looking at sort of what is the environment we're creating for the folks that we work with. Do we really invite people to show up as they are? Do we invite them to have a voice? What ways are we creating, like you said, psychological safety, or just a safe environment where people feel like they can approach us?
Yep.
And I think, so a lot of it's just kind of more building awareness, and then looking at, are there places to make changes?
Yeah.
And those are kind of so I would say start with the self, and then also kind of look out and see, like, do my employees come to me with things? Do I think my employees are comfortable with me?
Right. I love that whole self-assessment, right? That's a whole coaching self-assessment that we can take on ourselves, and we can actually do that at any time, right? I do it all the time. I'm like, did I? Wait, what I'm saying? I'll ask myself questions all the time to make sure that I'm still on point when it comes to the way I see the world and the way I show up and the way that people see me as well. What is so we talked about like how they can show up here at PPCaDI. We have what we call the PPCaDI leadership community, and I think that this is a beautiful way for leaders within organizations to be able to have a safe space where they can share and talk and get coaching and get resources around a topic like belonging. And so we love this space. And so I want to just, send this out as an invitation to you, whoever's, watching us live or watching us on replay, to join our PPCaDI leadership community. And you can find it at PPCaDIleadership.com. So that's PPCaDIleadership.com. And we do this because we understand that people need a safe space when it comes to really learning how to infuse belonging into organizations. And so the last thing I would ask about belonging is, do you think it is possible for organizations to get to a real place of creating psychological safety and belonging in their organizations? Do you think it's possible?
I do. I think it takes a willingness. I don't think it's just going to happen overnight, and people need to see the value in it in order to want to make it happen. And so I think, and a lot of that has to happen from the top down, right? Mm-hmm. Because obviously we know a lot of the decisions that happen, especially in larger organizations, have to come from leadership. There has to be some kind of resources put towards it. So I think a big part of it is people really understanding, and I hope we were able to touch on that somewhat today, of just sort of, why is this important? It's not just to feel good. It's not just to, check some boxes off of our corporate list for the year. It is really about creating these happy, sustainable work environments where we have less turnover, we have more innovation, we have more creativity. Like, it benefits the organization.
Yes.
But to your question, is it possible? Absolutely. I mean, I think anything is possible, but it has to start. It has to start from a place of valuing it, and then figuring out how you're going to implement that into your organization, and making sure that you're educating, especially your leaders, on why this is important, and then giving them the tools, right? It's one thing to say that, oh yeah, in our organization, we foster belonging.
Right.
And it's like, how?
How? And I love that, because it does take courage. Because I think that some organizations are really scared, but I think that they're scared maybe for the lack of knowledge, right? And I mean, to be honest with you, like you said, some people don't really care, right? And we have to be honest about that as well. But if you do care, it does take courage, and there's always a way. And part of the way is really wanting to do it, right? Like, that's the first step, and starting with self, as you said, Dr. Kathleen. And then from there, we can get into coaching and doing a lot of leadership development around this topic that's going to help an organization really build an environment inclusive of everyone, where they can say they show up and they know that they want to be there, and then those around them want them to be there. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that if, one thing I appreciate in having lived in different places in the world is, in the US, there's a big focus on customer service, right? I'm not speaking for all companies, because gosh knows I have had a lot of not good customer service experiences. However, I think over the last few years, there have been this bigger push of, like, kind of the customer's always right, but creating a really good customer experience. And I think that if organizations put the same amount of emphasis on that in creating really good employee experiences, then I really wonder what would be possible, right? Like, if we could have both approaches, then I think we would have incredibly powerful organizations, and organizations would have way less turnover.
I so agree with you. And on that note, we are going to wrap it up. And I just finally say, like, belonging, again, is a basic human need. We all need it. And if you're a leader in an organization, just start with self. Ask yourself, do you feel like you belong in your organization? If you don't, then there's probably a little work that needs to be done, but nothing that can't happen. And so we want to thank you all for joining PPCaDI today for our really amazing conversation around the courage to step into belonging. And we look forward to seeing any of you in our PPCaDI leadership community. Again, you can visit us on or at PPCaDIleadership.com. And until next time, we'll see you then.
Bye, everyone.